you saw, people just didn't know how to react because, to your point, this is the biggest star we've ever seen pass away, especially at a time where a lot of people knew him because he was still in the spotlight, still around LA. And then you have all the stuff with LeBron going on all at the same time, Eric. It was just almost too ironic that today was the day it happened after everything we saw on Saturday night.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not going to be, not on this episode, it's not the time for it. I'm not going to bring it back to LeBron, but other than to say you're exactly right that, just the momentum of the moment of what, historically to the NBA happened on Saturday night with LeBron moving into third on the all-time scoring list, actually doing it in Philadelphia, which Kobe Bryant, for the most part, calls his hometown. Obviously, he spent a lot of time there and in Upper Merion, of course, in high school too. And so the fact that it happened the next day, like you said, it's almost surreal. It's almost impossible, the coincidence of it all. And, to your point with the social media, as you were talking, I was sitting here thinking about it and trying to go through my head. And, I can think of maybe a few entertainers like a Prince, the singer Prince, that happened in the social media age. But yes, Dale Earnhardt Sr., certainly to a sport itself, there probably wasn't, any bigger impact than that to, like Kobe Bryant's impact to basketball, Dale Earnhardt Sr. to NASCAR, something like that. But Dale Earnhardt Sr. really was only a domestic, name, internationally, maybe people had heard of him before, but certainly you didn't have fans and you didn't have people who knew a whole lot about him, globally, worldwide, like you do with a Kobe Bryant, obviously an Olympic, gold medalist several times and played basketball all over the world, in Italy and China. And it just, people knew the name Kobe Bryant. It would be akin to Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, someone in football like a Tom Brady. That's what I was going through today, is thinking like this name. I mean, just in basketball, when people talk about the greatest players of all time, you're always going to hear Michael Jordan. You're always going to hear Kobe Bryant. Those are names you're just always going to hear. And so now that you've removed one of those players from this planet right now at a young age, it's one thing when you have Hank Aaron pass away, of old age, obviously the legend in baseball, or those types of athletes who live a long life after they're done with the game. This isn't that situation. And I think that's why a lot of NBA people are in shock today too, because of what Kobe was about to do over his next 20 years. What with teaching his daughters, other children, the money he had put into the Mamba Academy and other camps and opportunities for kids to play sports and to learn. And then, like you said, just his mentorship of other players. I mean, I was looking today, the NBA didn't cancel games today, so I was kind of looking around the league to see what was going on. And the league did some nice tributes, as best they could, considering that they were going to play the game. But some players were clearly emotional. And, you take a guy like Trae Young, who is of the age where, like you said, he would have been in diapers when Kobe was coming into the league. And so he grew up on Kobe Bryant, not necessarily Michael Jordan. And that's where like a athlete coming into the league, in a couple years is going to say, well, I went through elementary school and whatever with LeBron James. It's just that transition. And so you have a whole group of people in the league right now where Kobe Bryant was their hero. You saw it. You saw it right there on the floor. Raw emotion from guys like Trae Young and DeMar DeRozan, and Kyrie Irving didn't even play today. He couldn't. He went home. I don't blame him. I mean, he just lost a friend, crying out loud. Golfers, other people. You have a name like Kobe Bryant. I mean, he's friends with a lot of high profile people. And Tiger Woods was told of Kobe's passing after he comes off the 18th green at today's tournament. His caddy, who probably found out during the round, but waited to actually confirm it with Tiger Woods till he was coming off the 18th green, said what had happened and that Kobe was gone. And Tiger's reaction was, are you serious? Like, this isn't real. It's that kind of level of reaction to these athletes and these friends of Kobe. And, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Surreal. That's the only way I can think of it, because it still hasn't hit me. And I'm, like I said, I didn't have the privilege of knowing the man. Just as a sports fan, it's surreal. I can't imagine for those people that knew him.
No, and I think that too is some of the side of social media where you can get on and look, the Nuggets and Rockets were playing in a game at about 3:30 East Coast time, and they had video of these guys like out on the court, and they're like looking at their cell phones, and you can tell like they're just getting the news then. And you've got guys like Tyson Chandler that played with Kobe that's sitting on the bench just sobbing. Austin Rivers is out with his eyes welled up. Doc Rivers is emotional. I think that just speaks to the impact that Kobe had on the game of basketball, where I think, to your point, when you look, and one thing we talked about even pre-show, this show is not about doing rankings or anything like that. But I think in the overall picture, Kobe is a guy that could be on the Mount Rushmore of basketball. And I think for older fans of the game, when it's the All-Star game or even the NBA Finals, and you see players like Bill Russell that come out, and then Magic Johnson will be out, and Larry Bird and Michael Jordan, Kobe was going to be the next guy. Kobe was going to be that guy for this generation that would have been trotted out by the NBA almost as a goodwill ambassador, a guy for the Lakers that would have, for any major event, any passing event, anything, if the Lakers get to the NBA Finals, Kobe was the guy that was going to be there. Kobe would be a guy that was going to be there if LeBron eventually would pass Kareem, another Laker, as the all-time leading scorer down the road. He would be a guy that would be handing out MVP trophies and things like that. And he's gone. And I think from a legacy standpoint, I think that's also something that's sad, selfishly, for the sport of basketball, just in the fact that we won't get to have that opportunity down the road at these big moments to see Kobe there, just as we still do with Russell and Kareem and those guys now. And it's kind of part of the legacy of the sport that you hope will live on. And you hope somehow the league can find out a way to make sure that he's still sort of present, even though he's not there, because he absolutely is a legend of the game. People may not like the way he played it, but when you have the career he had, an 18-time All-Star, 5 titles, the amount of points that he scored, the different eras that he won in during his career, the different teams that he played on, still got to 5 rings. He's definitely a guy that's in the conversation to be top 5 all time. And when you start to be able to talk about that and think about, well, if everything went right and this guy probably was in peak physical health, if something doesn't happen to him for the next 30 plus years, he's going to be around the game. He's going to be a guy that people can look to, and having that gone. And even from a standpoint of like, what was the next steps with his daughter that passed away? Where could she have gone with her career? The way that we're starting to see women's basketball take off, their new CBA, where maybe the WNBA is going to step up here over the years as more and more talented women come in from college into that league, and people become more willing to watch that product because of the talent that's there. Who's to say she couldn't have been there? Who's to say Kobe wouldn't have had something to do even buying one of those teams or franchises down the road? But just his impact on the game, Eric. Even a couple months ago, I read an article where there was over 100 NBA players that actually wear Kobe's shoes. And wow, you think about that now of that's, more guys are wearing those than Jordan shoes, and LeBron and Kyrie and Paul George. And a lot of those are under the Nike umbrella. And a lot of people just like the Kobe 4 for the comfort of it. But there's something to that. When you have guys like Anthony Davis and DeMar DeRozan and Devin Booker, these guys wearing Kobe's shoes, they're not just wearing it because of comfort. They're wearing it because also of Kobe's name is on that shoe. And I thought then of like, wow, that many players are wearing Kobe's shoes. Like, this guy really, he did have an impact on these guys. And now to see the outpouring of just love that he's gotten today, and just the emotional reactions to it, you start to really understand just how much impact that he had on this generation of players that are out there. I think that's crazy, because when we were, you start looking back to like 2003, when Kobe had all the stuff with Colorado going on, even the stuff after that with basically the divorce with Shaq and the way that things changed, and he switched his number from 8 to 24, and he was really trying to change his image. Eric, thinking back to that time, even, as far back as maybe 15, 17 years ago, up till maybe even 10 years ago. Did you ever think we would get to a point with Kobe where we would see that kind of just the impact, the positive impact that he would leave on people and that type of legacy he would have based on where he was then?
It's a great question. And I think what's interesting about a question like that is that we don't think about it in that moment, in that time of what our legacy might be or what impact we might be able to have later in life. And it's kind of a nice redemption story, isn't it? It's an opportunity to continue to mold yourself and to make yourself better. And we know that he did that with his basketball game. He was always striving for perfection. He said that. That was one of his famous quotes, that he strives for perfection. You know, lazy people are people he didn't get along with because he doesn't understand laziness. He was always striving for that perfection. And, you know, we know these people as athletes. And I think one of the things that struck me, and probably part of it because, with his daughter perishing as well, I think, you know, brings it to a different place. But we see these people as athletes so much more than we see them as people and as human beings. And the fact that back in 2003, when he was going through the adultery and rape accusations and the things that were so heavy on the beginning of his career, and then, of course, you know, winning the 3 titles. And then, like you said, the breakup with Shaq and winning more and going through the development of his career. And then, of course, late in his career, tearing his Achilles, and many people thinking that was going to be the end. And Kobe basically saying, I'm not going out like that, coming back from an Achilles tear that late and at that age. And he did it. And he came back and finished what he started. So I think there's so much more to be seen here about the human condition and about the opportunity to continue to make yourself better at whatever it is. And for Kobe, a lot of that was life, you know, having children and marrying Vanessa and, you know, staying the course. I think there was going to be a lot to come with his business and his business acumen. And just this overall development of, he had a podcast and he had ESPN shows and he had, I got to tell you, Justin, I could have seen Kobe Bryant being a GM, or I'm going to take it, you know, to a really hot take and say, maybe Kobe becomes the commissioner of the NBA someday. You know, these are all things we'll never know, but you're right, to where he was young in his career and some of the mistakes that were made, and then bringing yourself up. I think it's a good message for a lot of us that failure doesn't have to be permanent if we never quit. And I think for him, there was no quit. That's why we chose, you know, some of those quotes, for the beginning of the show. It's about the sacrifices that he made, certainly as a teammate, maybe as a husband, even the mistakes that were made because of striving for a certain goal. They can be forgiven and redeemed as you continue to grow as a person. So I'll be honest, I didn't think in 2003 that this would be the impact of his overall career, or that we'd be saying, wow, one of the biggest losses of Kobe Bryant's career is not necessarily even the 20 past years, but the 20 years that were ahead of him. I just think that's something that a lot of people are going to be grieving over the next, well, week, month, year, a long time. Because as you start to see LeBron get to retirement age, and then you're going to have, not too long after that, you're going to have guys like Durant and Steph Curry get to retirement age, you know, Russell Westbrook, obviously Chris Paul. It's just this cycle of great players. And what do they do next? And for me, what Kobe was doing next was going to be really exciting. I think that's one of the hardest parts about this. I mean, there was college athletes. Oregon women's basketball team was in tears today because some of them were friends of Kobe Bryant's, likely having been mentored and coached by Kobe Bryant. So the impact is just so enormous of something like this to the past, the present, and the future of basketball.
Yeah, for sure. And I think looking back at that, and look, Kobe, sort of the reclamation project of his image, it wasn't overnight. This took time. for him to do this. And for the most part, outside of